Okay, I need you to stop what you're doing for just a moment. Just pause. I want you to think about the last major decision your parents made that impacted your life. The one that maybe, to this day, you don't fully agree with. Got it? Now, I want you to imagine that decision wasn't about your career, or your curfew, or even who you were dating, but about a single, private, intimate moment. A moment they discovered. A moment that led them to look you in the eye and say, "You have to leave. Now, you are no longer welcome here." That is the razor's edge between unconditional family love and absolute moral code. And it is a place where one of America's most famous families, the Duggar family, finds itself tonight, in a story that is breaking the internet and breaking hearts in equal measure. The headline is shocking. Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar kick out daughter Josie after secret intimate moment with new BF. But here's my first question to you. Before we jump to any conclusions, before we side with the parents or side with the young woman, what exactly constitutes an intimate moment in a family with such famously strict boundaries? And does the punishment truly fit the perceived crime? This isn't just a story about a family spat. This is a live wire touching on faith, freedom, modern dating, and the incredible pressure of growing up in a spotlight you never asked for. Buckle up, because we are going deep for the next, well, for as long as it takes. First, let's establish the landscape. For anyone who lived under a rock in the 2000s and 2010s, the Duggar family, led by Jim Bob and Michelle, became a cultural phenomenon through their TLC shows 17 Kids and Counting and 19 Kids and Counting. They preached and lived a lifestyle rooted in conservative Christian principles: courtship instead of dating, no kissing before marriage, modesty in dress, and a deep commitment to family unity under the parental authority. Their lives were an open book, or so it seemed. We watched the kids grow up, get married in beautiful, chaste ceremonies, and start their own families. The brand was wholesome. The promise was that this system worked. But cracks began to show. First, the family scandal involving the oldest son, Josh. Then, the public splits and nuanced views from some of the older daughters who started their own lives, hinting at a more complex reality behind the scenes. The family facade was no longer pristine. It became clear that raising 19 individuals, each with their own heart and mind, under one rigid set of rules, might have complications. Enter Josie Duggar. Now, Josie isn't just any Duggar child. She's the miracle. Born extremely prematurely at just 25 weeks, she fought for her life in the NICU for months. The world watched Michelle carry her, the size of a hand, through a plastic incubator. Josie was a symbol of the family's faith and resilience. She was the tiny, beloved youngest of the counting years. In the public eye, she was forever frozen as that fragile baby. But time moves on. Josie is not a baby anymore. She is a young woman, reportedly in her late teens, which in any other family would be a time of exploration, of figuring out who you are apart from your parents. And that brings us to the central, explosive conflict, the new boyfriend and the secret intimate moment. Reports are swirling, but based on multiple sources close to the family, here's the alleged sequence of events. Josie, living at home under the well-known Duggar umbrella of rules, began seeing a young man. This was not, from what we understand, a formal, family-sanctioned courtship arranged by Jim Bob. This was a modern relationship. They met, they talked, they likely texted, all relatively normal for most 18 to 19-year-olds. But in the Duggar home, this alone could be seen as rebellious. The relationship was kept quiet, a secret from her parents. Then, the incident. The phrasing in every headline is deliberately vague. Secret intimate moment. What does that mean? In the lexicon of the Duggars, it could mean anything from being alone together in a room behind a closed door, to kissing, to more. The sources suggest it was a moment of physical intimacy that fell far short of sex, but was a blatant, knowing violation of the Duggar courtship principles. Perhaps they were caught kissing. Perhaps they were discovered in an embrace that was too close, too private. The key is, it was secret, it was intimate by their standards, and it was discovered. Now, picture Jim Bob and Michelle's perspective. This isn't just about a broken rule. This is about a shattered covenant. Their entire life's work, their public ministry, their identity is built on this system. For them, this moment isn't just a teenage slip-up, it's a spiritual crisis. It's a direct challenge to their God-given authority. It's a potential stain on the family's reputation, which is also their brand. And in their worldview, drastic sin requires drastic correction to save not just the family unit, but Josie's own soul. The rumored outcome? An ultimatum. A demand for profound repentance and a return to the courtship model, or leave. And Josie, perhaps channeling the fighting spirit she's had since her first breath, apparently chose. She is reported to have left the family home. She is, for all intents and purposes, according to these sources, kicked out. This is where the story transcends tabloid shock. We have to look at this through 3 different lenses. For Jim, Bob, and Michelle, this is a biblical issue. Verses about honoring your father and mother, about purity, about the dangers of temptation, are not metaphors, they are direct operating instructions. The family is a hierarchy with the father as the head. Disobedience isn't just disrespect, it's a spiritual rebellion. From this angle, their actions, however harsh they seem to us, are an act of love, a tough love designed to bring a straying sheep back to the fold before worse befalls her. They would likely say they are protecting her, their other children, and their testimony. To not enforce the rules would be to make a mockery of everything they believe and have taught. Put yourself in her shoes. You grew up on camera. Your most vulnerable first moments were public property. Your family's rules are a national talking point. You've seen your older siblings navigate this system, some embracing it, some quietly chafing against it, one causing immense trauma. You're the miracle child with a label that's hard to shake. And now, as a young adult, you experience a normal human impulse, connection, attraction, privacy. You want something for yourself, something not dictated by the family script. That secret moment wasn't just about physical attraction, it was likely an act of self-definition. It was her saying, in one way or another, this is my life. This is my heart. Being asked to leave is not just a punishment, it is the ultimate rejection of that self. It's the family structure saying, comply completely, or you cannot belong here. The emotional whiplash must be staggering, from miracle baby to exiled daughter. We look at this and see a devastating power imbalance. We see a young adult being cast out for behavior that most would consider a developmentally appropriate part of growing up. We see the crushing weight of a family brand crushing individual choice. We worry about her safety, her mental health, her financial stability. Does she have an education? A way to support herself? A network outside the massive Duggar clan? The public outrage isn't just about the rule, it's about the potentially dire consequences for a vulnerable young woman. It feels less like discipline and more like cutting off a limb to treat a wound. And we have to talk about the public nature of this. The Duggars invited us in. They sold us their lifestyle. So when it fractures so dramatically, it becomes our business. We feel a sense of invested whiplash. We rooted for baby Josie. We feel a protective instinct. And we judge Jim, Bob, and Michelle with a ferocity reserved for those who preached perfection and are now presiding over a very human, very painful fracture. Now let's consider the possible aftermath, the fallout that extends far beyond one house in Arkansas. For Josie, this is either the worst thing that ever happened to her or the beginning of her real life. There is no in-between. She is now on a path walked by other strict religious community exiles. It is fraught with danger, potential exploitation, loneliness, financial hardship, a crisis of faith. But it is also a path to potential freedom, self-discovery, a faith she chooses for herself, relationships on her own terms, and a voice of her own. Will she speak out? Will she, like some of her older sisters, find a way to carve a space that acknowledges her family but lives by her own rules? Her entire identity is being forged in this fire right now. For Jim, Bob, and Michelle, this is a crisis of legacy. It exposes the unsustainable pressure of applying a uniform system to 19 unique individuals. It calls into question the very success of their parenting model. Can they maintain authority when children become adults? Does love truly become conditional upon compliance? This incident will reverberate through their other adult and nearly adult children. It will be a test. Do they close ranks? Or do other siblings privately or publicly reach out to Josie? The family dynasty is cracking. For the public and their fans, it's a reckoning. The wholesome brand is irrevocably tarnished. It reveals the potential human cost of ideological purity. Fans who believed in the dream are disillusioned. Critics feel vindicated. And the vast majority in the middle are just heartbroken for a young woman caught in an impossible trap. So, where do we go from here? This story is still unfolding. We may get statements, non-denial denials, or strict silence from the Duggar camp. Josie may appear on a sibling's social media, or she may vanish from the public eye completely. But let's bring this home. Let's make this about us, the listeners. Why does this story grip us so? Because it's a magnified version of a universal struggle. The moment a child becomes their own person, and the parent must decide how to love that new, sometimes unfamiliar, person. For most of us, that conflict is over career choices or political views or how we raise our grandchildren. For the Duggars, it's over a foundational moral code. The hook of the story is the shock, kicked out, intimate moment. But the real story is the tragedy, a family potentially torn apart by the very principles that were meant to bind it together forever. It makes us ask hard questions of ourselves. What are our non-negotiables in love? Where's the line between guiding and controlling? How do we forgive when our deepest codes are broken? And how do we find our way back to each other after the worst has been said and done? Jim, Bob, and Michelle faced a choice between their doctrine and their daughter. They reportedly chose doctrine. Josie faced a choice between her family and her autonomy. She reportedly chose autonomy. In that collision, there are no winners tonight. Only broken hearts, a fractured legacy, and a young woman stepping out into a world she was never prepared for, armed with nothing but the same fighting spirit that got her here in the first place. We can only hope that spirit is enough. And we can only watch and perhaps pray in our own way for a miracle of a different kind for Josie Duggar, the miracle of grace, of safe landing, and of a love that finds a way to bridge an impossible gap. This is a story about family. It's a story about faith. But most of all, right now, it's a story about a young woman walking a very lonely road with the whole world watching. We'll be following this closely, with empathy and a hope for healing. I'm Olivia, and this has been a deep dive into the headlines that hide the human heart. Thank you for listening.